All right, and we're back for another episode of Inside Sports Fantasy Football. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break Podcast, welcoming you to another great episode of the show. And with me to recap Week 11, and boy, what an eventful weekend it was. He's here with me now. You got to check out his awesome show. It's three great guys talking about politics, pop culture, just great conversation, cigars, a whole lot more. It's the Voice from the Underground. You got to check it out today on any podcast outlet that you desire because it's all over the place. It is Voice from the Underground, and one of the hosts is right here. He's the man with the most.
The man with the most.
The man with the most. It's Jasen Dutch. Jasen,
What's
great
up?
to have you back.
Hey,
Been a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's good to be back. A couple weeks off, handling some personal biz. But I'm in the words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm back.
He's back, and he's rocking the Atari shirt. Like I said, I've got one at home. I got two, and I love the one that says "represent." Yes, so he is representing Atari, old school. We're going old
80s,
school
babe.
today.
The funny story is that I never owned an Atari, believe it or not. I had an Odyssey 2. I don't know if you remember that one.
Oh, I do. Yeah, actually,
but,
I can take you further back. I had a Pong was my first one.
I mean, I played Atari all the time, because neighbor kids would have Atari. So I have a lot of memories playing Atari in television, ColecoVision. But I owned an Odyssey 2. So it was funny because the Odyssey 2 was the first one it was made by Magnavox. It was the first video game system really that came out. But they didn't have any licenses. They made all their own games. So like they had Pac-Man, but they called them KC Munchkin. They had, I think it was called Pickaxe Pete, which was their Pitfall. So it was interesting because they had this great game I think it was called Dungeon Explorer. So I have great memories of the Odyssey 2, the old one button and a joystick.
I remember it all too well, my friend. In television, ColecoVision, I've played or had them all. I do remember going to the old department store. Get this, it was called Treasury. Going to the Treasury and getting that with my father, the Atari 2600 kit. Oh my gosh, that was just something special to me. I still remember it like it was yesterday.
I do. I remember looking at the Atari. What was it? The 5600 and the 2800 on the
2600, 5200, and then
5200.
Yeah.
And like looking at them at the shelf at Toys R Us, like, oh, I wish I could have that. You thought they cost so much money, and they were like $79.99 or something like that. But yeah,
something like that, exactly.
Yeah.
But it is going to be a great conversation that we're going to have today in regards to fantasy football, per se, because there's a lot of stuff.
Let's talk video games.
Let's talk video games. In fact, we'll switch this over to the Pop Culture Cosmos. No, I'm just kidding, everybody. No, just check out the Pop Culture Cosmos and Voice from the Underground on another day, or maybe even after this show.
Maybe.
No problem at all. Maybe we're everywhere on podcasts. But Week 11 was very eventful indeed. A lot of stuff going on. Teams are starting to position themselves when it comes to the NFL and also fantasy football for that playoff run. That game in Baltimore between Baltimore and Houston was very interesting.
What the hell was that?
But I'll tell you what, it was Baltimore just, gave him a spanking that I couldn't even believe. That was really, I thought it was going to be more close. There was going to be a tighter game than that. I had a lot riding on the line because I had not one, not two, not three, but four players invested in that game. And only one really produced at a really high level. So I'm thankful I still got the win for my fantasy football team and 5 wins in a row for me. So I'm the hot man in my league right now. So I'm very excited for that. But can you explain what happened to Deshaun Watson during that game? Because Baltimore really did a number on him.
Sadly, on Friday. Now I have a league. I have a Yahoo league. I have 3. I play in 3 leagues, and one of my teams is like 5-6. And the other team is pretty pathetic. I actually have I think I have a very good team, but I'm that team where everybody scores 160 against me that week. So like my points against are like just disturbing, but it is what it is. That's my keeper league. So all is not lost. Then I have my other team where going into this week, I was 9-1 and I've been killing people. I had one real weak spot. I have, that team, I have Cooper Kupp, Thielen, though he's been hurt the last couple games, Tyreek Hill, Galladay, McCaffrey, Jacobs, and we don't start a tight end in that league. And I think my flex is usually either, like I said, either Thielen or Cortland Sutton. So I have a very, very, very deep, very, very good team. I have all their backups. But my quarterback was Jason Goff, and I was very deep. Like I said, I'm very deep at receiver. So Friday, guy offers me Deshaun Watson for Cooper Kupp. I say, self, that looks like a good deal because I can just, Thielen will probably be back in a week or two. I don't care about these next 2 games. I've already clinched a first round bye. So I made the trade. I picked up Deshaun Watson, and this is how I get welcomed. Are you kidding me, Deshaun Watson? So it just ended up being a horrible game for me because I have Robert Woods too. I have a very deep team. Robert Woods didn't play. Tyreek Hill got hurt in the first play of the game. Deshaun Watson was terrible. My kicker got 1 point. I think I scored 70 points. I'm like, thank the Lord that this game came now and not in week 15. But yes, Deshaun Watson, welcome to my fantasy football team, you jerk. So hopefully, it's got to get better from here. And honestly, Houston, one of the reasons why I made the Watson trade, and I also picked up Houston's defense for that matter, was because of their last couple games of the season. They have, I don't recall who they're playing off the top of my head, but they have 2 pretty decent matchups the last couple weeks of the season, in week 15 and week 16. So I'm not, obviously it's one game for Watson, but let's talk about Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson has been just disturbing for a guy who came out of college with a lot of people naysaying and thinking that he shouldn't be taken and that he, and a lot of teams passing on him. Wow. I didn't think he was going to be this good. I thought he would be all right. I knew he was better than, some of the other quarterbacks in the league, but he has just been disturbing. That team has been disturbing. The receivers on that team are interestingly not all that exciting, but Mark Ingram's revitalized himself. It's quite the story, and that defense is looking pretty good too.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And they certainly did a number on Deshaun Watson. Unfortunately for both you and I was still able to pick up the win, but it wasn't because of anything Deshaun Watson did. But you know what? Overall, he's had a very, very good season. I was just hoping for a better matchup between the two because there was such hype going into it because there were, very similar teams as far as what I was seeing from both of them. They both have those capability at quarterback to go ahead and get you points in both rushing and also passing touchdowns, which was, obviously very attractive to anybody out there in fantasy football. So I was hoping for more, didn't quite get it, but still was able to pick up the win nonetheless. But I'll tell you what, man, it's just great to be talking to you here about what's going on in week 11. I also want to talk to you about some other quarterbacking issues and quarterbacking things and quarterbacking concerns, and 2 quarterbacks that were of great concern earlier this season that a lot of people like us here at the show weren't buying 100% in on were Dak Prescott and also Kirk Cousins. So I want to give your thoughts on that. First of all, we'll go with Kirk Cousins because I know Minnesota Vikings, you have a lot of vested interest in there with Thielen and all that. So your thoughts on Kirk Cousins. Is he a consistent buy-in now? Is he someone that you can actually feel confident in starting? Because, ever since he got all that criticism within the team and also, worldwide via, whatever sports outlet you want to talk to, he was getting roasted big time. He's actually gone ahead and played, extensively a lot better. And I think now he feels a lot more comfortable there. So I think he's now a consistent play, but I don't know how you feel.
Well, I'm not 100% sold on Kirk Cousins, but I'm not hating on Kirk Cousins either. I think Kirk Cousins is gonna be a matchup dependent play. It depends on who your other quarterback is. If you've got like Mitch Trubisky as your other quarterback, then by all means, you're going to start. You maybe want to look on the waiver wire.
If Mitchell Trubisky is still on your team, that says a lot about you.
Yeah, that's a sad story. Or one of the Allens, or but I mean, it really depends on who your other quarterback is. I mean, if you have someone like, say, Jameis Winston, I probably go with Jameis Winston over Kirk Cousins just because every week they're going to outscore their opponent. I mean, I have Jameis Winston on one team, and he outscores Tom Brady, my other quarterback, almost every single week. There's no question Tom Brady is a better quarterback than Jameis Winston, but this is fantasy football.
But it's hard to sometimes because I've told you he is feast or famine.
Yeah.
He'll either get you a lot of touchdowns or a lot of interceptions. It just doesn't seem to be anywhere in between.
Right. And with Kirk Cousins, he's got I believe they play the Seahawks in week 13, which is going to be an important game. That's not a particularly wonderful matchup, but it's not a terrible matchup. The thing is going to be is if Thielen is healthy. If Thielen is healthy, he's got 3 rock solid targets to throw the ball to, and I am referring to Diggs, Thielen, and Mason Rudolph, who only catches touchdowns, right? That Kyle Rudolph is only, I said Mason Rudolph. I'll get back to Mason Rudolph later. Kyle Rudolph, I mean, he's only going to catch 2 balls a game, but one of them is almost certainly going to be a touchdown. But that whole team has been revolving him around Dalvin Cook. And Dalvin Cook, if you pick Dalvin Cook in the second round, or maybe even the third round, you got a freaking steal. I mean, and if you do have Dalvin Cook, make sure you have Madison on your team. And a lot of people are going to be dropping him this week because they're on bye. So look for Madison to become available in a lot of leagues where people are kind of giving up. So if you own Cook, definitely pick him up. But Cook has just been disturbing, and he's sort of giving Kirk Cousins a little bit of a shield because you have to focus so much on him. But Kirk Cousins going into the playoffs here, and I'm looking at their week 14, 15, and 16. His matchups are not awful. He's got the Detroit Lions in week 13, which is going to be important. He's going to have the Chargers in week 15. I think both of those matchups are pretty decent matchups for Kirk Cousins. The Chargers' defense has been inconsistent, to say the least. And everybody knows about the other scenario. So maybe not a terrible play. Again, it really depends on who your other quarterback is. They do have a really tough matchup on week 16 though with the Packers. So, I'm not sure if I'd go with Kirk Cousins in that particular game. He's a really matchup dependent guy.
Now, when it comes to
the other guy,
that's what I was going to say. Dak Prescott,
21
touchdowns now, only 9 interceptions. Really, really solid season so far. It looks like from what was beginnings that a lot of people said were I don't believe what he's doing. Because he started off hot.
Mm-hmm. I didn't.
And he's been somewhat consistent. Not every week, but he's been for the most part a consistent play. And I think a lot of people might have jumped off ship early on him, but I think it's now to the point where if you can pick him up, you can trade for him or do whatever you can, because I think he's a solid play going forward.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go to the playoffs in your league and you have Dak Prescott, he's the reason why you're going to the playoffs, right? I mean, he's in the MVP conversation. He's not the MVP. Russell Wilson, I think, is ahead of him, and Christian McCaffrey is light years ahead of him. But he's in the conversation. So I think Deshaun Watson took himself out of that conversation with his egg he laid this week. But certainly, he's got Dak Prescott has some pretty good matchups. Not so much week 14 because he has to play the Bears, which is a disaster on offense, but their defense still seems to hold people and do pretty well. And then I want to say they have Philadelphia and another decent matchup in the playoffs. So, I mean, if you've got Dak Prescott week 15 and 16, I forget who the week 16 matchup is, but I know for a fact they're both pretty decent matchups. The Eagles secondary is in disarray. So that should be, easily a 35-28 game. So you should be in pretty good shape there. It just depends on how much Elliott gets. So I admit I was wrong on Dak Prescott. I still can't say that I would take him in the first 2 rounds next year, but I would have ranked him below Jared Goff, below Baker Mayfield, and I was wrong. So yeah, Kirk Cousins, like I said, I'm not there yet, but I think Kirk Cousins has better weapons available to him, so that helps him. Dak Prescott doesn't have, outside of Cooper, any receiver of note, although Randall Cobb has played exceptionally well the last 2 weeks, but it's 2 weeks. So show me a couple more games, and I'll believe Randall Cobb's back.
Once again, I'm talking to Jasen Dutch from the Voice from the Underground. You got to check out his awesome podcast along with Big Haas and TJ Johnson. You got to check it out today on any major podcast format that you choose, because it's right there. It's great talk, great conversation, politics, cigars, pop culture, you name it. It's all right there for you at Voice from the Underground. I'll tell you what, my friend, it still was a lot of great things that I saw when week 11. You know, the advice I want to give people out there is just stay with it. Even if you're maybe a game or two down, there's still time for you to go ahead and make that playoff push. Even if you're a game or two out in the loss column or whatnot in your league, you still have time to go ahead and make those moves, or still have time to go ahead and focus, and don't give up just yet, because I saw a lot of teams in my league, for instance, that are already giving up. They're not paying attention. They already have people on bye weeks that are in their starting lineup, and they're just not paying attention.
Pay attention to your freaking league. Change your damn lineup.
Exactly. They should, at least give it a shot, at least give it a try. You never know what's going to happen. But I want to ask you this. At running back, I know there's been a situation where there's not been that many consistent running backs this season. I don't see quality outputs from a series of running backs this year like I have in recent years even. I know running back is a de-emphasized position overall in today's NFL, where it's pass, which actually I don't mind at all. But I want to hear your thoughts on running backs when it concerns, where do you play them? Do you play them as a flex? I mean, is there enough depth out there at the running back position for you to go ahead and consistently put a running back in at not only 1, 2, but 3 positions?
I don't think so. I mean, it depends on who your 3 running backs are. I mean, obviously, if you somehow ended up with McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook, which I'm in a league where a guy has both of those guys, and then maybe you have another solid matchup, like maybe someone like what's his face, Connor from Pittsburgh or something like that, who you got in the 3rd or 4th round. Then sure, of course he's got to be healthy, and Connor's never healthy. But a situation like that, then yes. Sometimes there'll be a 3rd down back, like I've had situations where maybe Tariq Cohen was a decent play, or Naheem Hines, in particular matchups where it looks like the team might be behind. And in that particular situation, you can weigh that. But by and large, I'm going to go with a receiver in my flex position, assuming that we're playing in a PPR league. If it's not a PPR league, then that's the key difference. In a non-PPR league, you probably go with the running back because volume, right? In a PPR league, though, or even a half-point PPR league, you're probably better off going with a mid-tier wide receiver, which there are bountiful amounts. Yeah, you always risk a 0, but you seem to usually have a higher propensity to get a score, where Naheem Hines, for example, or what's the guy's name from Detroit? I forget the running back from Detroit. Not Ty Williams, the other guy, the 3rd down back at Detroit. I'm blanking in my head right now, but players like those, or even Eckler, are gonna. Eckler is probably the exception because he'll score touchdowns. Most of those guys don't score a lot of TDs, but they'll get you, 9 or 12 points because they'll get 5 catches for 47 yards, and that's sometimes acceptable out of your flex position.
Well, that's the thing I wanted to ask you, and you mentioned Austin Eckler, and I know you didn't get a chance to check out everything when it concerns the Chargers.
No, I didn't even watch the Monday Night Football game for the first time in like years. I had too much going on, and I until we logged in, I didn't even know who won the game. I had paid no attention to the Monday Night Football game.
And I'm going to talk to Chris Ardieri about that game in more detail on our Thursday episode if we go ahead and get a chance to record it this week. But I wanted to ask you this, because they've got a situation, the Chargers, they're not winning, but they have these 2 running backs, Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler. And I know you don't have an affinity at all for Melvin Gordon, but it seems like
he's played well, though.
Melvin Gordon is they focus on him when it concerns rushing, but they're now focusing on Austin Eckler as a wide receiver. In fact, he actually earned over 100 yards receiving on Monday. So
why wouldn't you? Yeah, he's their second best receiver.
Well, that's what I want to ask you. I mean, now is he a focus even more for putting him in a flex position or even at a running back 1-2, even with Melvin Gordon there, because
Yeah,
it looks
absolutely.
like he's going to be something that special as far as at least getting those receiving yards and possibly even receiving touchdowns with that.
Austin Eckler is this year's Tariq Cohen. Absolutely. If you recall, last year, Tariq Cohen was killing people. He was, and we were all high on Mitch Trubisky. Maybe, I guess in hindsight, we were all just high. But, the Bears were doing very well in offense last year, and Tariq Cohen was a big part of that. So, Austin Eckler is the same situation. I mean, I had a guy in one of my leagues, the keeper league, actually, who was trying to get Eckler from me. He was like, why don't you trade me Eckler? I'm like, why would I trade you Eckler? He's going to be the featured back next year. Melvin Gordon's going to be gone, and Eckler is good right now, but look how he was the first 3 or 4 games a year when you had no Melvin Gordon. He was insanity on a stick. So, yeah, I mean, Austin Eckler is one of to me is a top 7, top 8 fantasy football running back. Obviously, week in and week out, there's going to be weeks where Gordon is going to outshine him. Gordon's a better runner than he is, but he's a better pass catcher and he's pretty explosive. So, I absolutely think Eckler is a great play.
I could agree. So I couldn't agree with you more on that. I think it's just a situation where the ball can only go to so many times to each player. I think inevitably there is going to have to be a breakup, and you're right. It looks like Melvin Gordon will be hitting the road.
Yeah, he's gone.
He's gone somewhere in free agency or what have you.
The Chargers, honestly, the Chargers made a big mistake not trading him.
I agree with you.
I'm not sure why him and Robbie Anderson from the Jets are the 2 guys where I was shocked that they didn't get traded, because both of them are going to be gone, and both of them, I mean, you could have gotten a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick for those players. Why not? Neither of those teams are going to win the Super Bowl this year, so it's silly for them to hold on to him. But they'll both be free agents, and Robbie Anderson, has had a terrible year, but I think he still has talent. And I think if you put him on a team like the Patriots, that he'll evolve into a really good receiver.
I agree with you on that. And especially on Melvin Gordon, I think it's going to be a situation where he's going to go ahead and seek greener pastures somewhere else. I think he's himself is in that situation where, like I said before, the ball can only go to either back. And you also got to take it to play Keenan Allen and all that those type of individuals that are in that Los Angeles Chargers offense. And maybe it's a situation where you just have too much talent at one position. And you're right, they should have gone ahead during that holdout situation, maybe go ahead and trade him for some assets, because you're just going to lose him for nothing. And that's going to be a bad thing for your organization, which needs a lot of help going forward.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And I think that we also need to mention, there are some running back pickups this week. Bo Scarborough of Detroit came out of nowhere. They signed the guy, and he started over Ty Johnson. And for whatever, I don't know why I can't remember the other running back's name. I'm going to pull it up here because I own him in one of my leagues, but for some reason I'm having this massive brain fart right now. But this Bo Scarborough guy came in and did quite well, but nowhere near this Jonathan Williams kid. I mean, this Jonathan Williams kid came in after the inevitable injury to Marlon Mack, and silly me, I own Nyheim Hines and Wilkins in one of my leagues, and this guy comes out of nowhere. So, but he McKissick is the Detroit running back. I've been trying to remember his name. But this kid had a 3rd and 19 where he got a screen pass right at the line of scrimmage and took it like 27 yards and just was running right past. I mean, the kid looked really explosive. Could be a one-hit wonder. You never know. I think Wilkins is going to be healthy this week, so I would imagine that Wilkins is going to get some carries. But Marlon Mack was one of those guys where you should have known that he was going to be hurt. It's unfortunate that this Jonathan Williams kid had a good day, because from a fantasy perspective, because a lot of people are going to pick him up, but I don't know if it's going to be him or Wilkins. So I don't think it'll be Hines. I think Hines will keep that third down back role, and I think Hines is certainly worth rostering. The other two is going to be sort of a a coin flip, kind of like what happened with that Atlanta running back. What was it? Byron Hill, or something like that. He kind of after the injury to the starting running back, he was supposed to be like, he was the number one waiver pickup. He didn't really do much. So, you never know with these guys, but that's one of the reasons why I don't think running back is all that sexy of a position these days. For me, it's a low priority in drafting. I want to have good running backs, but you've got running backs like Justice Hill and Miles Sanders who are not owned in 100% of leagues. Like Miles Sanders is only owned like 89% of leagues. What the hell is that all about? So it's that 89 is a high number, but it's not 100. He's a decent running back. He should be owned. So there you go.
Well, my friend, it's been a great recap indeed. I just truly appreciate our conversation. Once again, it's the Inside Sports Fantasy Football Podcast. I want to tell you this before we lead out. I want to tell you this before we head on out, everyone. If you get a chance, please, if you catch us on Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star review if you can. The more 5-star reviews, the more notice we get. And so fantasy football fans that all over can check out our show. It becomes higher profile, becomes more up there, more visible, and things of that nature. So if you get a chance and you see Inside Sports Fantasy Football, or if you get us on Apple Podcasts, please give us that 5-star review. Plus, you can, as you're leaving that 5-star review, you can give us a question there, or you can also give us a question and send us a question at any point of time at Inside Sports FF. That at side of IS Fantasy Football at yahoo.com and at Inside Sports FF on Twitter. You can also send us a question there as well. Plus, Jason, I think you've got a Twitter handle that also people can get a hold of you at.
Yeah, you can reach me on Twitter, Dutch, like the nationality, and Jasen, Jasen. So just Dutch Jason on Twitter, and then on Instagram we are at VFU Podcast.
Fair enough indeed. What you got cooking over the Voice from the Underground coming up for next week?
It's normal politics and pop culture. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a little taste of Voice from the Underground right now. I'm going to rant for 1 second here. Mason Rudolph should be suspended. Mason Rudolph, Myles Garrett, first of all, was completely wrong. Myles Garrett swung a helmet at this guy. But let's call a spade, and this is the type of thing we'll talk about on Voice from the Underground. Mason Rudolph should be suspended. Mason Rudolph was coming at him. Mason Rudolph was trying to kick him. Why the hell is Mason Rudolph not suspended for at least one game? This is ridiculous on another Steelers quarterback. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger has gotten away with how many alleged assaults? And that's one thing. And now Mason Rudolph, and I'm not saying Mason Rudolph's a bad guy. I'm not saying Myles Garrett's a bad guy. They make mistakes, right? People make mistakes, but you cannot. What Myles Garrett did was appalling. He could have killed Mason Rudolph, but Mason Rudolph was coming at Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett technically was defending himself. Technically, from a legal standpoint, for example, league standpoint, remember, private industry is different. Legally, if Myles Garrett had swung that helmet and killed or seriously injured Mason Rudolph, he would not be charged with a serious crime because Mason Rudolph was clearly coming after him. Why is Mason Rudolph not suspended for at least 2 games? I got one answer for you, and you all know what it is, and I'm freaking sick of it. So, we saw this with the Kaepernick thing with, nobody's going to sign him. I don't know why we even bothered, but it's starting to get to the point where it's very friggin' irritating to me. And again, I'm not saying Mason Rudolph's a bad guy, but this is absurdity. I mean, it clearly on the video was coming at Myles Garrett. So throw your hands in the air, wave them like you just don't care. So that's the type of thing we talk about in Voice from the Underground. We take something from pop culture, movies, sports, and we juxtapose it with social issues and politics and stuff like that. So, yeah, there we go.
There we go, indeed. And
Little
for
taste for you. I can just see your eyes.
exactly just a taste right there for you. But while at the Pop Culture Cosmos on our PCC Multiverse show on Friday, we will not be talking about one man hitting the other man on the head with the helmet, or his own helmet, I should say. We will be talking about Frozen 2 and how big of the box office it will do. Something a little bit lighter, a little bit more G-rated than that. But also as well, Black Friday episode. It's our Black Friday episode. In fact, that Josh, my co-host, and I are going to go over some of the best deals that are out there as far as for not just electronics, toys, games, whatever hits us as far as some of the best deals concerning Black Friday that you need to be aware of out there. So we're going to talk about that on our Friday episode as well, because we're excited, because Black Friday should be a national holiday for everyone out there.
It should. Do you know why they call it Black Friday?
I have forgotten, but I did read up on it one time.
It has nothing to do with badness, because most companies historically are in the red until the day after Thanksgiving. And then the day after Thanksgiving, their profits go into the black. In other words, positive. So that's why they call it Black.
Well, as someone who managed several retail outlets, department stores, and things of that nature, I know for a fact, especially with smaller locations, it can be up to 60 to 65% of your entire gross earnings can be made within that 7-day period, as far as from Black Friday to the next week. So the first week of December. I mean, that's some pretty, retail really relies heavily on you spending your money here in the next week. So what we're going to try and do is do what we can to give you some ideas that might save some of the money, so you can put it back into your pocket, so you can maybe spend it during the holidays for the family, or maybe get little Timmy another present instead of just one, and something like that. Or, the wife, the missus, another present. There you go. Always getting good with that. But we're going to give you an idea what to look for Black Friday coming up on our Friday episode. So we're looking forward to that. Also later in the week as well, I should have Chris Ardieri previewing Week 12 in the NFL. Plus, we're also going to be talking about, is it the end for Phillip Rivers and where he stands as far as overall from a Hall of Fame aspect as well. So,
absolutely. And I just one quick parting shot on fantasy. If you haven't already, and you're going to the playoffs, I said this before, now is the time to find your fantasy football playoff defense. Look at the matchups, see who's playing the cake teams, who's available. Pick up your defense now. Because if you don't, the guy you're playing will.
Excellent advice. For me, I couldn't avoid. I have San Francisco's defense, which is the number 2 rated defense overall in the NFL. Yeah. I couldn't let go of them. I mean,
no, you got San Fran or New England, or you're in good shape.
I mean, I had them. Somebody left them on a bye, or somebody just left them on waivers. So early on in the season, I picked them up, and it's just like, I can't let them go.
Yeah, they had an early bye. Week 3 is too early for a bye, in my opinion. So the NFL really kind of needs to change that.
It needs to do a lot of things. That's just the beginning, my friend. But
yeah,
let's not go there. That's another hour and a half right there for you.
Another hour and a half, right.
But my friend, it's been great talking to you. You're here next week?
I'm here next week. I will be here next week. And just as far as Thanksgiving goes, don't go shopping on Thanksgiving. Spend it with your freaking family. Go the day after. Or don't.
Don't listen to him. Shop Thanksgiving. I do.
No.
I do. Yes, I do.
Well, in my Kathy Bates from Waterbury voice, you are the devil.
No. Thanksgiving, it's not a religious holiday. It's a, just a,
careful. The conservatives will lynch you outside.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's just a holiday.
Careful.
All right. I'll just say this. Go shopping if there's great deals. I mean, 65-inch for $278 right there.
The MAGA hats are coming for you.
Oh, no, please, gosh. No, don't get me started there. No, no, wait. 65-inch TV. 65-inch TV, 4K. There you go. That entices me. The Roku built in.
Is that the TCL?
No, that's the Target brand. That's Element. I'm sorry, Element. Element's all over the place now. Yeah. Element's all over the place. Then Walmart has one with an Android built in for the exact same price. So not only Target, but also as well Walmart will have a 65-inch 4K with the smart TV built in for $278. Now, mind you, it's not going to have HDR or any of the real upgrades if you're really into like a video fall. But if you're just like, you just want a decent TV to go up there that's big, that's nice for the front room, there you go. There you go. I mean, that's all you need.
NFL and The Mandalorian and Watchmen and all this great stuff.
Well, the thing is, when you go ahead and look at TVs and you ask yourself, what am I going to put on it? If you're just going to watch broadcast television or cable television or even streaming television, they're not able to go ahead and always translate the information to give you that HDR, the deep blacks, the things of that nature that you could get when, if you have, let's say, a 4K Blu-ray player on and you're playing a 4K Blu-ray in that. So to me, it makes a lot of sense if you're just someone that wants a decent TV that shows a decent picture. You know, the prices are getting insane on some of those big TVs. So we're going to talk about that again on our Friday episode. So look forward.
I can't wait to listen.
And I can't wait to listen to hear you talk about, Mason Rudolph for a little while up on your show as well.
Well, if you, for just a little tint to the listener, if you guys, we did Zootopia 2 weeks ago. So not this show from yesterday, but the one from last Monday. We talked about racism, stereotype, and culture bias in the Disney film Zootopia. 2.5 hour podcast on a 1 hour and 45-minute movie. So there you go. That's a really deep movie. But
well, Big Haas was moved by it because he calls it one of your best episodes ever.
I think it was. Yeah. Well, we have a low bar though.
Fair enough, indeed. Well, I want to thank everyone for going ahead and listening to today's show. We wish you the best of luck. Look forward to hopefully Chris and I coming on later this week to give you a preview of what's coming up in week 12. But also as well, wish you best of luck with your fantasy teams going forward. Thank you for watching us on YouTube so much. We truly appreciate it. You've stuck with us the entire episode, so we cannot thank you enough for doing so. And again, everyone out there, we'll hear from you very soon right here at Inside Sports Fantasy Football.
Bye.